Right, next up we have the East Riding of Yorkshire. East Riding is one of the 6 authorities in the LGA's Future Councils programme. A programme for councils, it says here, who have already shared all their services and management, applied systems thinking and lean processes, and improved their procurement practices. So the key question is, what do they do next? And that's what I'm hoping we're going to hear. So I'd like to invite Amanda Wilde, who's the Customer Strategy and Digital Services Manager at East Riding, to tell us her story of innovation.
Hopefully I'm quite short, so I hope it can be seen above this lectern. Okay, just a little bit of context then around the East Riding. We're 1,000 square miles, we're very rural, population nearly 340,000, very sparsely populated, so there's always this old adage that we shout a lot in the East Riding. A lot of older people come to retire through to the coast, places like Bridlington and Hornsey, and we lose a lot of our younger people as well that go out for better jobs and some might say better nightlife, etc., into some of the bigger cities that surround us. Low ethnicity, and it's a fairly affluent area, but there are some real pockets of deprivation, particularly around conurbations like Goole, Bridlington and Withensea. Socitm asked if I'd come and talk about an innovation showcase from the East Riding, and we've talked a lot in our organisation about innovation, and for me there's 2 angles to it really. One is that transformational change, you know, that huge thing that really radically changes how we deliver services. But there's also the small scale or the incremental changes that build on maximising value from systems, maximising value from processes, and that incremental change. So the smaller scale changes are just as important. And things like the Velcro is probably not very relevant now, but that was a small scale change but made a big difference. The paper cups, the paper or cardboard circles that go around your coffee cup in the morning, stop you burning your hands. Again, small scale changes make a big difference. Other innovations, or some might think frustration. Flappy Bird, where did that go? I wanted to talk to you about mobile web and our offering and how we've developed. And this is quite a good indication probably of many people's family lives now. The modern family that sit around at breakfast or dinner on their laptops, on their tablets, on their e-readers, their phablets and phones, pretty much never talking to each other either probably. But that's what modern life looks like now. Why mobile web? Just a bit of context then. Well, mobile's taking over desktop as of now. User projections are there. Why is it growing? Well, the whole 24/7 access means that everything's more accessible anytime, any place. Mum wakes up in the morning, looks on the mobile phone and see if the school's been affected by the bad weather, is it still open, without having to go to the desktop and log in, etc. Here's the chap in the doctor's surgery googling his symptoms before he goes in to see the doctor. Not looking too happy. And again, people that do it while they should be doing something else. How many people are on their phones right now when you should be listening to these wonderful presentations? Also improved connectivity. There's no shortage now of Wi-Fi zones. Improved connectivity across all of the different providers makes a huge difference. We still have some challenges around this in the East Riding, some of our rural areas, but it's getting a lot better. Connected devices, again, this whole development around, as I mentioned, tablets, phablets, e-readers, whatever the next big innovation is, huge choice about how to access. And that moves on now to the car and the access to the internet that's now being proposed that can happen from your vehicle and into Google Glasses as well, which I'm sure will be the next great craze. Lots of usage. I think an earlier presenter said around 7 out of 10 people in the UK own a smartphone. This whole ubiquitous nature of smartphone growth is, again, by 2016, they say there's going to be 90% of people that have a smartphone, whether they just want to use it for calling and texting. When you go to one of the supermarket chains now, getting a phone out of the box is an Android phone. So there's really no choice. That smartphone is the norm. And some people are just catching up with that. In terms of usage then, people spend just under 3 hours a day socialising on mobile devices, social networking, gaming, whatever it might look like. That's twice the amount of time that they spend eating, and a third of the time they spend sleeping. What we know is that internet usage is already more popular in the evening and very early morning, on the commute home from work, or again, 86% of people actually surf the net whilst they're watching TV. And I should make a joke here about multitasking, but there's so many men in the room, I daren't do that. What does it mean then in terms of East Riding and our website? We spent a lot of time on this project to develop a website that was fit for what users needed. We went right back to a blank sheet of paper, and that's not the basis of this presentation. But what we found was the increase in our website activity was 25% with the desktop and 75% in the same year for mobile visits. That trajectory was kind of going off the scale. So we said we've got to really get underneath this and understand what this means for our future development. So what did? We did a lot of head scratching. There's a lot of different direction about which routes you should take, what you should do, the apps, the native app, the responsive design, separate mobile website. And we needed to tie this into our whole programme of transformation that was mentioned at the beginning, one of the LGA Future Council programmes. And we've got a corporate-wide approach to transformation. I'm sure many of you have that as well. But we wanted to make mobile and that whole digital theme at the core of our transformation programme. So it was really important that we took the right path that was right for East Riding. So we looked at all three routes in terms of mobile website, native apps and responsive web design. They all have their pros and cons. It's not for me to say which one is the best for you, but we did our evaluation. Apps, very much the pros around it being powerful. You can use features or functionality of the user's phones like cameras and geolocations, and they can use in the areas without internet access as well. The cons, it has to be separately built for Android and iOS and etc. And if there's an update, that's more cost, that's more resource every time. And there's a lot of research around the high take-up and quick drop-off as well with apps. Mobile website, again, could be cheaper than app development, but and a website that's tailored purely for the mobile, so you get a faster and improved user experience. The cons to that really are multiple URLs, so the customer's got to remember where they need to go to access information or transactions, and the search engine optimization has to work as well, so we really improve for that kind of site. It's still maintenance of two websites, and this didn't tie with our theme around one set of content, managing one set of information for our organisation. So we wanted to develop responsive web design that worked for users and worked for the organisation. And the key benefits we see is about that one website and one set of content. So there's no duplication, so reducing the risk of conflicting information being available across multiple websites. And that out of date, the content is so important. I think it's the lifeblood of any good site, that it's got to be reliable and accurate and timely updated. It's also device independent, so it works on all screens regardless of devices. There's no need for separate styling. Panning and zooming again around reading the text on a smartphone is no longer needed as the content scales to the readable size. We could also develop this in-house, so we keep the costs down. We could develop our skills and build our skill base as well, so faster turnaround and lower costs, as I mentioned. Single URL is what we wanted for our customers, and a lot of this is advocated by the Socitm proposals were around mobile standards and the path to take. Content was the biggest thing we had to transform. Had to look at the desktop content. We'd already done a big piece of work around this anyway, evidenced, as Steve was talking about earlier, around user information and the importance of evidence around contact that can then be used to drive innovation and change. We needed to rationalise content that was fit for mobile device that would work across both platforms. And not all of it fitted with the mobile model, so we had to do some work and prioritise what content was going to be kept and what was going to be taken away. And thanks to the top tasks approach that we've taken with the website, designed around what people were coming to us for, that was a fairly easy experience for us. It was much faster, it was much cleaner, the content that we had available, and so it was more fitting for a mobile responsive design. We did a lot of device testing across all devices, so that so it works for all different screens and resolutions, and how different users operated them as well. Had I known the sponsor before, I thought about it a little bit more before I came, I probably wouldn't have included this picture. What I will say, apologies to Mike and the rest of his colleagues, however, you're a different company now and this was before. What I will say say that what you gave us was a really good development opportunity for the team to have a challenging device to test our mobile experience on. User testing and usability. This is intrinsic to everything we do around website, the desktop and the mobile. This is the lifeblood again. It's about right at the start of the experience, what does the user need, what are they visiting for, what do they want to access, how can it help our transformation programme to make savings, so we end-to-end transformation, and building them in all the way through the process in terms of those iterations. So listen to what they say, because they all use different devices differently, using different categories as well, whether they're a young, old, person with disabilities, or whatever it might be, a whole array of them to undertake user testing. So you get that feedback, that real-time feedback, and you can make those small iterative changes and build and extend the quality of what you're offering there. And it's really an excellent thing to do if people don't do it already. It really shows you how a site should be developed in line with what's needed, rather than building it around just assumptions or what you think works. We got a lot of feedback and we built this all in. A lot of it was positive, a lot of it was negative, and we took that on board and made these iterative designs. Then we did what we called the hallway method, just to test. We grabbed somebody who was the person who was passing and pulled them in and asked them, what does that work like for you, just to check that those iterations were improving. What did that mean then? Well, in 2012 we had 7% of all of our traffic coming through the site. With no mobile offering, they had to pinch and expand. It wasn't a very good experience at all. 2013 was our first attempt at mobile design. It wasn't responsive. We still got some good traffic through the site and some good feedback. But 2014 was our full mobile offering, and we've had just hit the peak period around Christmas, where we've had over 50% of mobile visits to the site, which is incredible, and it's all been based on that evidence and that evaluation of what works for customers. What we need to do then was to take the information, and this is where, for me, is the innovation. It's about understanding what works and what doesn't, and what delivers results in terms of whether it's reducing demand management, as Steve talked about earlier, whether it's channel shift, whether it's improving the customer experience. It's understanding, monitoring and measuring, and then making it an ongoing, like a cyclical improvement process. So what we know is they use the search a lot more than the typical desktop user, which is about 4th favourite. The kind of information they want to search for is that once and done. They want to go in there, get information largely around dates and times, and come out again. Location-based services like our household waste recycling, very popular, particularly at weekends when people are doing the decorating or cleaning or gardening, for etc. Their time pressures as well. I mean, that's the way that life's changing now, but they're in a rush. They spent on average 1 minute 18 seconds on the site versus the 1 minute 41 from the average desktop user, and just over 40%, so getting towards half, are coming in, looking at the single page and then going away again. Popular times, we've got a lot more access, I mentioned earlier, in the evening and weekends, and that's really important to understand about that 24/7 access that a council offers, and making sure the information is available. You don't want to create out-of-hours calls as a result of your web or your mobile web being a bad experience. They've also got very expensive taste in e-riding, as have many of you here, because the most popular device they use is the iPad or the iPhone. What we know is, for our transformation programme, if it works well on a mobile device, then it should work for every device, irrespective of whatever's coming in the future. That content, the way that it's styled and designed and navigation is critical for any developments that come our way, really. And as I said, they're all part of our Transforming e-riding programme and our digital transformation strategy, because what we're doing is working corporately, designing around mobile first. That is the future. So we design from the mobile backwards. That's the only way now that we can develop services. So that's working with all users, frontline, back office, IT systems, web, etc., coming together to redesign the most popular areas and from a mobile first perspective. Forms, they've got to be good, they've got to be clean, they've got to be clear, the navigation. You know, we've got our 1, 2, 3, you can see there. People need to know they're making progress, and you're taking people through the journey. Otherwise, they don't use them, they'll go away from the site and they'll pick up the phone. A lot of work done around that. Social media referrals, again, twice as many from our sites that refer from social media than desktop, and that's a growing trend. We've got a number of social media platforms as well that we're using, because most of the activity on social media is from mobile and smartphones and tablets. It's much easier to start from scratch with the mobile first in mind. Very hard to sort of unpick a site that's been designed for desktop only. Knowing your users is the critical thing, so taking time to get that data, understand the analytics, do the work, and not do that as a one-off. That's an iterative piece of activity. Content prioritisation in terms of what stays and goes, what do you throw away, what works for the customer. It's got to be done corporately, otherwise it's a question of which head of service is pushing hardest for what content goes on a mobile site. That doesn't work, it's got to be customer-led, user-led. Specialised content, some of it's tricky. Complex tables and maps, sometimes they're very hard to style on a mobile phone compared to what's available on the standard site. So there's some challenge there. And third-party websites, and our colleagues in Socitm are constantly lobbying third-party suppliers, because we've got to have a position where their sites are mobile enabled. And we make sure that we're involved in the process when we're procuring, so that we avoid that. Challenges, designing for fingers and not a mouse, pretty obvious. How you can display your website for different screen sizes and navigate accordingly. This is really important, back to the stuff around data and monitoring and measuring outcomes, not just doing it for the sake of doing it, understanding what users want, designing, implementing, and then measuring change. And it's about saving too. It's improving the customer experience. You've got to be about saving money, which is why the transaction end is really important to get right with forms, etc. So in terms of our learning, definitely think mobile first. That's got to be the front of anyone's strategy. How can it be improved for residents using a mobile web, because that's the way everyone's going. How can the mobile device technology help us to achieve savings? So how do you put those measures in? How do you work with services in a multidisciplinary way to make sure that you get the most out of any improvements through mobile? Internal processes, we've got a digital readiness assessment that every service completes when we're doing a piece of improvement work, so their thinking is brought to the fore around mobile and digital. Procurement, very much around, as I say, we're working with Socitm and others about procuring systems that are mobile ready. For us, it's about avoiding the app for everything approach. That's not to say that it's a bad thing or should never be used, but for us, we decided to go down the responsive design route. And it's not a very good image, but the cycle is really important in terms of process. So that's our learning: is look at what you need, understand the people that want to use the technology, prioritise mobile features over any others, and design with mobile consideration. And it's that iterative design which UDS were talking about earlier: prototype, review, refine. That should be cyclical, and it's about saving money too. That's me.